Welcome back to Live from Paris. It's time now for business news with our business editor, Owen Fairclough, and he's in the chair, raring to go.
Hello, Lorna. Yes, well, as always, European markets a little bit flat as well. The Americans have had some negative noises from the Federal Reserve in the past 24 hours, suggesting that the Americans, or at least Ben Bernanke, is not quite ready to pour billions more dollars into the economy. Things a little bit flat there. You can see all around 0.2% down. Just worth mentioning as well, General Electric suffered a credit rating downgrade from Moody's as well just late on Tuesday, warning that it's over-reliant on short-term financing, as are many non-banking companies right now. The US authorities are trying to give those kind of companies the same capital requirements as banks, hence this downgrade. The Asian markets, all quiet there. Well, fairly quiet. Hong Kong and Shanghai closed for a public holiday. That left the Nikkei to take up the slack, which it didn't really, finishing around 2.3% down. And a surprise as well in Australia. You don't say this very often. A surprise deficit for the Australian government in terms of trade in February. Exports around 2% down. That contributed to a trade deficit of around $500 million. Remember, the Australians sailed through the global crisis. Things never looked better for them, really, and there's concern that maybe as China slows down, Australia's slowing down as well.
OK, we'll be keeping an eye on that. But let's just stay in the East at the moment, because there are some fundamental changes afoot in China.
Well, it's partly because of those fears of that slowdown that the Chinese government effectively wants to break the monopolies on Chinese banks. They're some of the wealthiest in the world. Certainly 4 of them are in the top 10 richest banks in the world. The government in China wants to break the monopoly that those banks enjoy over the market in a bid to try and get more private lending to smaller businesses in China. What does this all mean? Well, effectively, foreign investors will be able to double and at some points triple the amount of money they're able to put into China, either directly into mainland China or via raising capital in Hong Kong that can be then put into mainland China. You're talking around $80 billion that foreign investors will now be able to invest. For domestic investors, the likes of you and I as well, Lorna, there's a pilot program underway. We don't know if that's off the ground yet, where some citizens will be able to invest directly outside of China, which again is a fairly big shift for a country as tightly controlled as China, particularly when it comes to financing.
Indeed. OK, well, we're going to move on now to something of a screen break for James Murdoch. Running his father's UK satellite broadcaster was Murdoch Jr.'s most prized role, but he's been forced to quit. Proof that the UK phone hacking scandal is continuing to cause ripples in the News Corp empire and beyond. Take a look.
His resignation was seen as inevitable. James Murdoch had been under months of pressure from shareholders to step down as chairman of B-Sky B and was afraid his staying in office any longer would jeopardise the satellite broadcaster's future.
I think there's a simple explanation, but it's difficult to run B-Sky B if you're based in New York. But also, I think it's much more about trying to separate the connection, to sever that link between News International, which James Murdoch has been in charge of until very recently, with B-Sky B, of which he was also chairman.
At stake, B-Sky B's broadcasting licence itself. British regulator Ofcom is currently investigating whether the company is fit and proper to hold one. B-Sky B lost more than £1 billion in market value last summer after Rupert Murdoch's bid to take full control of the firm fell through because of the news of the world's phone hacking scandal. 39% of the company is now owned by News Corp, the rest by shareholders. A British parliamentary committee is expected to announce its findings about the case soon. A separate police investigation is also underway. Though James Murdoch has maintained he had no knowledge or involvement in the scandal, he would be held responsible as former head of News Corp.
At the very least, they're going to say he may not have known, but he really should have done. So he's either a knave or a fool. And the problem for James Murdoch in that sense is that he's chairman of a public company, B-Sky B, 61% owned by people other than News Corporation, and his position clearly starts to become untenable.
With Murdoch's resignation, B-Sky B's shareholders will be hoping it can move away from any perceived connection with the scandal.
Well, let's catch up with some more company news now, starting with Facebook, which is counter-suing Yahoo in the latest patent battle between US tech companies. Facebook's accusing the struggling search engine of infringing 10 of its patents, a claim Yahoo made against the social network a month ago. The two join a long list of blue-chip firms, including Apple, Microsoft and Samsung, in suing each other over copyright infringements.
North American brewer Molson Coors is to buy StarBev for €2.6 billion to drive an expansion through Eastern and Central Europe. Molson Coors is buying StarBev, best known for the Czech brand Staropramen, from private equity firm CVC. It plans to run the company as an individual business. Last year, StarBev generated pre-tax earnings of €241 million.
The top London banker has been fined £450,000 for abusing insider information. Ian Hannam has resigned from JP Morgan's global chairman of equity capital markets. He stood down after financial watchdogs fined him for passing on emails about one of his clients, though there was no evidence to suggest insider trading or profiting. Hannam says he plans to appeal against the fine.
Now, if you are a top London banker or indeed a top banker anywhere or anyone with a bit of cash to spare, maybe this is the vehicle for you. It's not a bird, it's not really a plane, and it's certainly not a car either. Perhaps it's a bit of both. It's a new prototype flying car that's going on display at the New York Auto Show, and it's pitched as the perfect accessory for the time-pressed executive. The question is, will it really take off?
It's called the Transition, and for good reason. 1 minute, it's a private jet flying at 1,400 feet. The next, it's a gas-efficient car getting 35 miles to the gallon. Once upon a time, sci-fi cartoons imagined the flying car. Today, engineers at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology have built it.
I think it's an airplane.
A car. It looks like an airplane. A flying car.
It looks like a plane, but I think it could be both.
The vehicle's creator has an answer.
As we like to call it, it's a street-legal airplane. An airplane that can fold up its wings in less than a minute, drive down the roads and on highways, and park in a single-car garage.
Anyone hoping to drive the car needs to log 20 hours of flying time and complete a sport pilot's license before taking to the skies.
You have flight controls, a stick and rudder pedal to fly, and you have your steering wheel to drive. You have a gas pedal and a brake pedal while you're driving. You have a throttle in flight. And this is your shifter, so you have forward, neutral, reverse, and propeller.
Though not yet available, there is already a waiting list to buy the $279,000 Transition when it hits the road.
What do you think, Lorna? Could you see yourself zipping to work past the Eiffel Tower?
I wonder how it would go down in France 24. I was going to say, you said top bankers. What about top business presenters as well?
We'll see.
Maybe one day.
It'll set you back around $250,000. There are already around 10,000 pre-orders for this. 100 orders, putting down around $10,000 deposit. You still need a landing strip to do it, so it's not quite as convenient as you might think. You can't just land it in the street. You need a runway to actually get this thing up in the air. So
you've got to own quite a lot of land to start with.
It's for people with a bit of space as well as cash.
I wonder if France 24's expenses account will quite stretch to that. But just before we go, though, Steve Jobs, the movie, we were talking about it a little bit earlier on, an unusual choice of actor to play.
Well, I think it's quite unusual. Yeah, the rumour is, and we believe it has the blessing of Steve Wozniak, who was Steve Jobs' partner when he launched Apple, is Ashton Kutcher. Something of a Hollywood bad boy, maybe a reformed bad boy. He is billed to play Steve Jobs. You can see that. That's a pretty good likeness. That's
was that Steve Jobs?
That was Steve Jobs in his younger days. Of course, that was
eh?
Steve Jobs shortly before he died last year. But I think Ashton Kutcher could pass for him. He does have a bit of form. At least he's plugged into the whole social networking and technology sphere. In fact, I think he was a chemical engineering student, Ashton Kutcher, before Hollywood snapped him up. He's a big tweeter. He's got some 10 million followers. So he's really plugged into social networking and that kind of thing. So maybe not a bad choice to play the king of Apple. If you can think of any other choices to play Steve Jobs, I really can't think of anyone else right now. Do drop me a line on Twitter. Let me know at OwenFrance24.
Great. Well, maybe a few teenage girls going to see that movie who might not otherwise have bothered. Thanks very much indeed, Owen, for that look at today's business news. And that's just about it from us for now. But do stay tuned. Stuart Norval will be here with more headlines after the weather.